Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to DBDLeague. Today, All Hallows League Day 2. Now, yesterday we saw some absolutely exciting matches, and I'm sure today will be no different. We have some banger teams today. Now, before we get into talking about those sets, I have the pleasure of casting alongside Rich today. Rich, how are we ready for these games today?
Yeah, Snipes, I'm super excited today. I know we've got some fan favorite teams on the docket. Super excited to see those. First up, we're going to be seeing Invictus versus Sorrow. So obviously one of the, best teams of all time, kind of rebranded over to Invictus. And I'm just excited to see the action today. We're going to have some very interesting rule sets. Everybody knows the All Hallows League is, kind of an off the wall tournament. So I'm super excited to get into the action.
I agree. And so how it's going to work, it's a best of five. The first two are going to be that All Hallows League rule set, typically around the undetectable. Um, and then we get into the two gold standard sets. And then that final, if we get to that tiebreaker, we have special rules that even us at the desk here don't know what's going to happen until we get there. And yesterday we saw one of those, and maybe today, Rich, will be lucky to see another.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see a lot of those kind of set 5 twists because those are just those have gotta be one of the funnest perks of All Hallows League to me. Definitely definitely some of the goofiest plays happen when we get those, like, maximum undetectable, kind of off the wall, maybe everybody unequips all their perks type of sets. There's just I I there are 2 things that we love DBD for. There's the competition, and then there's how goofy it is. So I think combining those 2 things is what makes this tournament so amazing.
Absolutely. Now, for the sets today, Invictus versus Sorrow, we're going to be starting off on Hillbilly on Hawkins. And now the killer is going to have to use Apex Muffler, and they're also going to have to bring either one of the following perks. They're going to have to use Hex Overture of Doom, Trail of Torment, or Unforeseen. And now Hawkins Billy, I'm excited to see that one. So, and then we get into Demogorgon on Midwich. Just some banger games to start.
Yeah, definitely some interesting ones. I mean, indoor maps, a lot of undetectable. Obviously, if you're a hillbilly man, you don't wanna be on Hawkins, but if you're allowed to use the Apex muffler and some undetectable perks, I mean, maybe things turn around for you. So I'm excited to see those. Beyond those first 2 sets, we are gonna be moving on to some typical balancing sets, but again, if we do get to that set 5, we're gonna see a very interesting twist involved, so really excited to see whether we get there. Invictus, obviously very established, well-known team, gonna be playing against Sorrow, a team that's coming in from a lower bracket run in the group stage of this event. Um, do you think Sorrow has what it takes, Snipes, to kinda keep things competitive here?
I mean, looking at the roster on Sorrow, we see some recognizable names from the latter scene. We got Meds, we got Easy, very, very solid chase players. Now, can they translate that into the 4v1? I guess today we'll see. And they're against Invictus, a very, very strong team. Just absolutely just OG legends of this of competitive scene. So can they match up to that? Today will be the test for them.
Yeah, I have faith in Team Sorrow to keep things competitive here. My question is, I know we have some 1v1 juicers on that team, but will it really be that important with such off the wall sets, at least in our first 2 sets here? And we're gonna have to see.
It will be interesting to see indeed. I love Billy sets, and to see him on such a map like Hawkins, it's not going to be too bad, I think. Some of these longer hallways, you can get from one side of the map to the other. It's definitely not the worst map. And how these maps are picked, actually, so each team is going to ban one map, and then the team that picked the killer actually gets to choose the map. So they're kind of a little bit of advantage here. You get to pick what side you want. Um, and the 5 map pools that we have are Midwich, RPD, East Wing, The Game, Larry's, and Hawkins. So honestly, for Billy, out of those 5 picks, Hawkins might be one of the better choices.
Yeah, it certainly could be. What I'm interested to see is that I know that Invictus has the treat of having sort of a hillbilly main on their team, somebody that we're used to seeing on the survivor side, but Dan has an absolutely absurd P100 hillbilly. So I'm excited to see that skill expression come out in the Hawkins set, see how the mobility of hillbilly can kind of be used on those indoor maps when you're a main, hillbilly main that is. Do I mean, you have a bit of familiarity with the team Sarah. Do you know if we have anybody on that team who's kind of a specialist on hillbilly? Because if they're going to be sending in somebody who's just a really solid killer player against Dan, uh, I'm questioning how things will go.
They do have one. I'm wondering if we're gonna see Garafa's Billy today, and if you recognize Garafa, that name, he is a cracked out Billy. I'm curious to see if he's gonna make an appearance today, or maybe someone else will pick up that mantle. But yeah, Garafa's Billy is absolutely disgusting, and so it will be a treat if we get to see him go against Dan, the one and only.
Yeah, now that you're mentioning it, I think that name does sound very familiar to me. I think I've seen some Garafa gameplay and hillbilly sets in the past. So that's super hype. Hawkins, super off the wall map. It's just going to be an interesting day altogether. Is there a set that you're most excited to see today, Snipes?
Um, Honestly, it's this first set right here, this Billy set. As a bit of a Billy main myself, it's just so crazy to see how someone can, these crouch techs that are going to come out, and maybe some of these curves that Dan or Groff or whoever on the killer side for Sorrow is going to pull out, and just the absolute technicality that goes into these curves. 99 that chainsaw and getting that like perfect, just absolute 100% curve on these servers, and servers that are good at least. This is the top of the top. These are some of the best teams in the competitive scene. It's not just your normal pubs. These guys are juicers, and so to pull off such mechanics on these players, it's just incredible to see, Rich.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing to see. I love a hillbilly set and just being able to see what these what these hillbilly mains can make happen on such a strange map is going to be fun. It's always a treat to kind of get to see skill expression in a way that it's not typically shown. So I love the hillbilly set. I'm very excited to see that. I'm also excited to see this Demogorgon set. I'm a big fan of kind of a traditional Demogorgon set. Um, the stages are typically close, but there are obviously opportunities for the killer. Things are going to change though with this AHL Demogorgon set. We're going to be seeing Demogorgon on Midwich with the Red Moss add-on, so it's going to give a lot of additional undetectable, and we'll see how their builds also kind of play around Midwich being the map of choice here. How do you think that how do you think that that set's going to go? I don't think I've ever seen a tournament Demogorgon set on Midwich.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical map for Demogorgon. You only see it on like Dredge and Pig usually. Um, Now, with the portals being, you can't hear when he's portaling and that extra undetectable, I feel like it's going to play similar to a Dredge match. Dredge has that mobility to get around with all those lockers. And Demogorgon with these portals, if the killer places them portals in great spots, they're going to be able to apply pressure all around the map. And there's not many pallets to work with. So this shred attack with Demo, it's going to eat those pallets. And if they're not careful with their resources, we could be seeing some, and like at one generator or two generators remaining, no resources left, and the survivors are just getting two tapped. So I'm curious to see how the survivors are going to play for on that map.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see as well. Now, you mentioned Dredge. One of the reasons that we love to see Dredge on Midwich is because Dredge's power, well, on a lot of other maps, is not particularly strong. It can outplay a lot of the pallets on Midwich. There's not a lot of opportunities for survivors to break away. Demogorgon, however, it's a bit different. I mean, the survivors are probably going to be able to make good use out of those resources, at least compared to a set like Dredge. So I think it will be, like you said, just a matter of how well they use those resources. I think we are going to see a lot of instances where dead zones are created, and it's just going to be a matter of how efficiently the killer can do that. Now, it's also going to come down to that undetectable. I mean, the the Demogorgon's power not quite as snappy to use as Dredge's. So while there are similarities, there's also going to be a pretty big difference, and I think the callouts are going to be particularly important. You know, you can see the kind of direction the Demogorgon is teleporting. So a lot of opportunity for counterplay, a lot of opportunity for skill expression. We love to see it.
It's going to be a treat indeed, and we are now loading in, getting this final setup here as the survivors are joining the lobby. We have, and as we see, Dan on the killer, as we talked about earlier, and we are seeing Garafa on the survivor, so I'm excited to see what he's going to pull out. I know he's a juicer as Hillbilly, but I also know he's very well versed at facing him, so we'll be excited to see. And now the survivors are readying up. And we are going to be loading into this first match. Invictus chose this killer, so it is typical to see this team take their set picks, but it's also not unlikely for the teams to lose on their map picks. So curious to see how we are going to go into this next match.
I love to see the confidence in the killer pick from Invictus, but I have faith in Sorrow as well. I know there are some pretty crazy players on this team. I see another fan favorite, Finesse, well-known well-known streak gamer on Twitch. So got some world records under their belt on Team Sorrow. We'll see how those world records kind of pile up to the ones from Invictus. Uh, very seasoned, and we got some perks coming in from the teams. All right. Nothing too crazy about these builds, Snipes. I don't think. I mean, we have the Trail of Torment coming in from the killer side. That's kind of something that we expected. We are going to be getting into this first game. So it's going to be, again, Dan from Team Invictus on Hillbilly versus the survivors of Team Sorrow on Hawkins. So for perks, we've got Corrupt Intervention, Pain Resonance, Eruption, Trail of Torment, and we see a very quick first chase coming in from Dan. That could be a huge difference maker in this set, Snipes.
Yeah, I mean, just talk about what I saw, or we just saw what I talked about earlier, and already a first down coming out onto Fancy, and that is a very quick down. I mean, Hillbilly sets, we do see those quick downs happening. That was a 24-second chase, absolutely incredible. And we do see Garafa with the no-mither. A lot of teams do opt for this no-mither play, and we see it happening here.
Yeah, the no-mither definitely a regular pick on the Hillbilly set. Fancy going down there super quickly spells danger for Team Sorrow, honestly, especially against the Hillbilly of Dan. Now we see a quick down here. That means a pretty significant camp opportunity, though. Dan gonna break away from the hook here pretty significantly to kind of interrupt this upstairs gen progress, and instantly kills Garafa too with the no-mither, taking advantage of that. Maybe some questionable callouts from the teams, or maybe those add-ons and perks from Dan coming in clutch there.
Yeah, I mean, getting caught out in that gen is never what you want, and especially with the no-mither person, just being able to get that M1 down. And Fancy is still on the hook, and now Groff is up on the hook, so two people on the hook, and not a single player from Sorrow here on the gens. This is looking rough. Groff now does get saved here from, I believe that was Meds lurking around for that, but now Dan going to be more than happy to take this second stage onto Fancy, and now we do see a little bit of gen pressure coming out from Finesse, but still not the start you want if you're Sorrow.
Yeah, Sorrow team kind of scrambling and fumbling a bit here early in the game, giving Dan that opportunity to force second stage onto Fancy. You would think that they would have tried to rush that pull as Garafa got downed, kind of knowing that they were in trouble and trying to prevent, do some damage control. But here we see second stage onto Fancy at 5 gens and Garafa with 1 stage as well. So just kind of doing some gen patrol here is Dan, trying to kind of stay within range of the hook. Fancy's timer almost hitting halfway, and I don't know how they're going to be able to save this, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Dan got this down so early, and he can now just camp this completely to death and entering the 3v1. We did see one generator pop, and we see Grafa working another generator, but still, I mean, a 3v1 this early just smells trouble for the survivors of Sorrow. And I mean, Invictus looking strong as always, and just 99ing this, making sure Fancy dies on the hook, and now will be branching out to try and check some of these other generators. We haven't seen Trail of Torment come in just quite yet, so maybe trying to deny that perk usage of like letting them know what perks you have is always good on the killer side. And now we're actually catching out Finesse here, who does have Swerver, so isn't going to be able to get a little bit of distance, but still almost gets hit by that curve.
Yeah, Finesse going to need a really strong chase here if they're going to have any chance in this 3v1. Dan just making the disciplined play, kind of getting rid of that pallet, getting rid of that resource. And now going to go for a curve, but he does miss. Finesse doing a great job here so far. Has a very strong pallet here, though against Hillbilly, it's not quite as strong as other killers. So what we're going to see here, we got a gen popped, and Dan kind of getting a little bit scared and just cutting his losses and leaving that chase. Really, really good for the team of Sorrow, but it's only a start to what they need. We do see Trail of Torment. Yeah, we see Trail of Torment coming through. Garafa kind of stealthing near the portal room there. Dan going to try to use this Trail of Torment. Now, Trail of Torment, Snipes, I mean, it's an undetectable perk, which is amazing for the AHL set, but it's also kind of an information perk. So if somebody hops back on that gen, Dan is going to know. He just needs to find somebody, and he does. You see on meds here. Another solid chase so far. We'll see if it can continue. Almost gets curved. Jesus, an amazing attempt from Dan there, but does miss it.
Absolute beautiful crouch tech from Meds. We are going to be wasting 2 of these really good pallets here and pre-dropping the third. Dan just going to be opting to break this, and now maybe getting to this pallet. Oh, the overcharge ran out just in time, and it unfortunately will not make it to this pallet. And now Meds has to play the 50-50 here. Will Dan win it? No! Meds goes down at the pallet trying to use that finesse, but just unfortunately will not. We do see a third generator pop, and going back on the hook now, Meds a fresh hook. I mean, Sorrow brought this back from that really, really early down. Very well played on their part.
It's awesome that Meds tried to get away with a finesse play there, honestly, but doesn't quite get there. And honestly, 2 great chases from Sorrow kind of brought him back into this game. Do get the save on Meds for free as well. Dan not pressuring that hook does want to make sure that these gens aren't getting too progressed. What are we going to see? A little bit more stealth from the survivors, a little bit more stealth from Dan here as well. Everybody kind of taking the same approach to this game as the All Hallows League suggests you should. Unable to find anybody here.
See some scratch marks here over by this, and it is Garafa here, and the chainsaw actually choosing to opt to cancel it early, and now playing this very unsafe pallet once it's dropped, and now Garafa has to play 50-50. Does have Dead Hard, he actually wins, but he can't make any more distance, unfortunately. Is he going to be able to get it? No, he will be going down, and we hear that eruption proc in the distance, so Dan will know that someone's on that generator. And second stage up onto Garafa. It's slowly starting to slip from Sorrow's hands.
Yeah, and a pain res coming in as well from Dan here. Garafa, that could have been a huge moment, that 50-50 win, but was unable to make it anywhere and couldn't even use their dead hard, which, you know, as a no-mither player, you kind of need to be able to hit that consistently. So unfortunate there for Team Sorrow. Dan staying in this game despite a kind of momentum swing halfway through. But Sorrow kind of doing the same. We'll see if this tunnel now can quickly come in on Garafa, because that could be another huge difference maker. Does want the down onto Finesse, wants another pain res. Oh, nope, going for Garafa and instantly gets downed again through the dead hard. Oh my god. Huge for Dan.
That is brutal. Now entering the 2v1, Meds still injured. Did put that blast mine there on that generator just to buy a little bit more time. But Dan said, no, I want you instead. And instead of going for the generator, we are going to see that balance landing from this hole once again. But still, I mean, a lot of resources were wasted. We do have a couple around the area, but is Dan gonna actually just leave here and maybe check the other generators since they are all kind of in the central map and get flashbang here as we switch back to Dan's POV of him getting blast mined.
Perfect timing. Made me think we were meds getting flashbanged. I was like, what's going on here? Yeah. Okay.
um,
It's a tough position here from the survivor's point of view now. Snipes, what result are we looking at? They'll be lucky to 4K1, right?
yeah, I don't see them getting another generator, especially here with Meds taking chase, although went on quite a run earlier. So, you know, if this chase extends any farther, then and we could see a gen popping from Finesse. But we have Eruption procced on 2 different generators, so, you know, if we are going to be seeing a short swing come out, maybe thinking Meds is going to drop that pallet, and now we're at this one. It's very easy to curve this, and exactly that! Meds gets the hit, and Finesse screams out in the distance, alerting Dan of that Eruption, and so now Dan's going to know exactly where to look when looking for Finesse.
Yeah, Finesse is going to give best effort here. I mean, they've got to try to save and at least pull out one more gen, but even that is, like you mentioned, an uphill battle. The only gen that they have right now has about 25% progress, and Finesse even getting caught on the way to the hook, it's just going to spell death for them. Impressive
Beautiful
from
curve
Dan
attempt.
to be able to hit these curves on Hawkins. I'm not going to lie, we did see a bit of an AHL swing a little bit earlier on the Meds chase, but the down comes in on Finesse, and that's going to be a 4K2 result. Extremely strong from Invictus.
Yeah, incredible result indeed, and it's going to be a little bit of a tall order to come out in 4K2 a team as strong as Invictus, but, you know, we have seen upsets before, and I'm sure SOR is going to put their best foot forward coming into this next match.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what SOR can make happen here 100%. I don't think that the set is over, especially because we've got all these off the wall sets today, and strange things can happen in strange sets, that is for sure. And if I'm not mistaken, we've got a bit of a connection element here as well. So I believe this is a mostly, if not entirely, North American team playing against an EU team. So we are going to see that element come through, and that can change things oftentimes in favor of Killer. So we are going to see what Sorrow can make happen.
Yeah, 4K2, it's definitely not the strongest result we've seen on Billy. We've seen a lot of 4K4s, 4K5s, you know, high 4Ks on Billy, you know, considering, you know, that overcharge being so strong. And perk wise, Trail of Torment was brought, and I'm curious to see if another perk is going to be brought or if they're going to go with the same Trail of Torment. We do see Garafa on the killer side as these survivors are going to be joining up here soon as we are in lobby. So we are going to be seeing some Garafa Billy. Now, can he 4K2 Rich? That is the question we will be asking.
Yeah, I think it can definitely be done. We'll see. I'm interested to see which sort of choice of undetectable perk the team of Sorrow chooses, because players are required here to bring either Hex Overture of Doom, Trail of Torment, or Unforeseen as the Hillbilly to this set. So while those are all similar perks, they do change kind of the nature of the set a little bit. Uh, I'm interested to see whether they do go with kind of the classic Trail of Torment or one of these newer perks, especially the newest Overture of Doom. I would love to see how a perk like that plays out.
The problem with Overture of Doom is that one, it's a hex perk, so it can be easily, you know, removed from the game. Um, but also it's very easy to call out. And once that furthest generator is complete, it's just you just don't do that farthest generator, and the perk is basically useless. So that's why we see a lot of people bringing unforeseen and trail instead of that new hex perk. But I'm curious to see if someone maybe can get use of it. Hawkins does have a bit of a problem with totems, and if unless you know the spawns, they can be quite tricky to find sometimes.
Yeah, that is true, but I can tell you the survivors of these teams will know the spawns very well, especially if they did any preparation for this set. Though hard to prepare for a set like this, to be fair. So again, it looks like we're gonna have Garafa on the killer side. You said that Garafa's a bit of a hillbilly main. I'm excited to see some more curves come out, but I I find it difficult to imagine a start to a game happening for Team Sorrow that's kind of on the same level as what Dan just had with Invictus. So, barring an absurd start like that, what do you think needs to go well for Team Sorrow to kind of keep them in this and get that? I mean, unlikely 4K3 win condition, but at least maybe the 4K2 tie condition.
It just comes down to, can Garafa end these chases quickly? Can he pressure the gens all around the map, using these long hallways to maybe he brings eruption and maybe he applies it to all the generators. Something we saw from the Sorrow survivors was actually doing the portal gen and that top second floor gen first, which was an interesting strategy because we saw those four gens all in the middle of the map there, and they were just unable to do anything because Dan kept going back and forth between all of them and kept pressuring them off. And so maybe if they saved those gens on the top floors for with that balanced landing player, maybe they could have gotten more gens done and maybe even seen some outs if they had good enough chases. Because we saw some really good chases from the survivors of Sorrow, but just unfortunately, it came a little bit too late with that 20-second one coming in so quickly, and then Garafa getting caught out in that upstairs area. It was just unfortunate for Sorrow, for sure.
Yeah, the first chase or two of a game definitely kind of carrying more importance than a lot of the other chases can. So even though Sorrow did have some good chases from the survivor's perspective that game, it was kind of too little too late. We'll see if the same happens here for the survivors of Invictus, but my estimation is that they're going to be playing kind of more reserved, more safe based on, their extremely strong win condition of just completing 4 generators here. So we are loading into this next game. Again, it is going to be Garafa on the Hillbilly against Spitz, Kexo, Pedro, and Dan from Team Invictus.
I mean, some recognizable names here if you have been in the comp scene, and we already see a head-on coming out
The
onto
instant head on.
Garafa, and that would be Spitz himself, the juicer. He is going to be taking chase here, and something we don't see this match is actually the no mither play coming out from Invictus, and we are going to be getting that stun as well and landing on the wrong side of the pallet. And so Spitz already having a incredible chase so far, and Graf is actually just leaving.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that that chase was amazing. I mean, it was so short and yet so sweet. It really shows kind of the experience coming in from Team Invictus and Spitz in particular. That perfectly timed pallet drop, even cross ping. I mean, that's not something that many survivors in this game can do, even though it's so simple. So we do see Pedro here found near the edge of the map. Trail of Torment applied to the gen, and Garafa hoping to get some eruption value here as well, clearing up some resources in these pallets. But we do already see just such a stronger start from the survivors of Invictus here. So Garafa in a bit of trouble, maybe in panic mode. Not quite yet. Pedro with an amazing crouch tech. Not something you can pull off all the time now against Hillbilly, but okay, it does make the locker play. We're gonna see. Wow, really well played actually from Pedro. Just forcing out those extra 5 seconds can be huge, Snipes.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. And now we are going to be seeing a Pain Res come out. We don't see Corrupt actually on Garafa's side, but we do see that DMS. So unfortunately, one of the survivors will just be off generators. But I mean, that was an extensive chase. They have a lot of gen pressure all around the map here. And now Garafa still, or he doesn't have trail anymore on that gen. I believe it completely got rid of. And Spitz again, just dropping that pallet, playing it safe. And now eruption will be applied to this generator over here, and if he can get it down, that will be really good. I think that was the gen with their highest progress besides that DMS gen over at the portal.
Yeah, but again, Invictus with such a good win condition can just play this kind of slowly but surely, just guaranteeing that they get a certain amount of gen progress for each down. And Garafa, unless they can make something happen very quickly here in terms of getting a tunnel out, it's going to be difficult. So we do see another chase come in here onto Pedro. Going for that tunnel out is Garafa. Gets a nice double back there, but doesn't catch Pedro quite off guard. Oh, we see the whiff swing. I don't blame Garafa for going for it. Difficult. And a life play from Pedro. Double vaulting with life is actually a crazy mind game. I love that.
And just ducking into that corner. Is he going to get the M1? No! Pedro gets the stun and is going to continue this chase even further. You know, Garafa trying to go for that tunnel out, maybe trying to get it to that 3v1 that we saw so quickly last game. And now we see Kexo over here, and another gen pops. 2 gens have already popped. He would need to 4K right now. And it's just looking more and more unlikely as this game progresses here. And this is just so unfortunate. I mean, Invictus obviously showing why it's their map pick. A little bit of a body block here might actually be the downside, but no,
Oh,
he
no.
crouch techs. That is just incredible. What a chase all of these survivors have been.
Wow, good down from Garafa, but the damage is done. That chase was so good, and we're seeing, you know, knowing a bit of Spitz, I would be surprised if that wasn't, knowing the team Invictus, knowing Dan, that I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of an intentional thing, just getting into the mind of Garafa there with that sandbag on their own teammate. So we do see a fresh hook onto Kexo, another pain res applied, and back to Pedro for, you know, just scrambling to try to get some value is Garafa here. And not going for the pressure on the hook at all. Does need to play a bit risky here to try to meet the win conditions, so we may see either a really good or really bad result depending on how that goes. And so far, Snipes, it's not looking great for Team Sorrow.
No, it is not. We see eruption being applied to many of these generators and Trail of Torment as well, so that Apex Muffler is really going to be kicking in. We see some scratch marks here, maybe even catching off guard, but no. I believe this is Pedro. I thought I saw the V. It's kind of hard to see between the flames, but yeah, it is Pedro indeed taking this chase. We saw incredible stuff from them, and we still have a lot of resources here. And the fake chainsaw coming out, the M1 will be applied. But again, I mean, we see how much gen progress they have all around the map, not just on these generators that had the eruption on them. So we will be seeing that gen pop out from Dan and potentially as well Spitz.
Yeah, like these being separate gens, I mean, it essentially almost spells the end of the trial. Because that gen is about 95 as we see Spitz take a chase into this corner. I say it's nearly the end of the game, but Spitz gets downed here right next to the high progress generator. That could be big for Garafa. Maybe the only way that Garafa could even remain in this game enough to get the tie condition. But keep in mind, they still have to play perfectly from here on out, and I don't think the survivors of Invictus are gonna let this extremely strong start go. As we do see them on another generator with about 70% progress. It's looking difficult. Now, what are you thinking here if you're in the mind of Garafa, Snipes? I mean, how do you even make such an impossible win condition happen?
It's so tough, and the pressure is definitely there. We did see that DMS expire on the gen in the distance, and we also see the unhook coming out. This win con is just, it's so brutal. And just to think, if they got one more generator done, could have been looking in an actually decent spot for Garafa, but just that 4K2 was very brutal. And we see that unfortunate gen pop in the distance, so that will mean Invictus is taking first set as we continue chase here onto Spitz, possibly thinking he has dead hard and waiting it out just beautifully. Unfortunately, Spitz is not going to be getting that timing and will be going back down on the floor, but I mean, well played from Sorrow and Garafa here, trying to meet that. It was looking very promising there for a minute there.
Yeah, Garafa, they did the best that they could, and honestly, not even a bad result, especially given that they probably took some risks that they needed to take that backfired. So not a bad result overall, but not enough to get this set. So a very interesting set on the Hillbilly Hawkins. So I love to see that, but I'm also excited to be going into the Demogorgon set. Now that said, we will kind of. I like to call these kind of final moments of a game the momentum decider, because if Garafa, for example, if Garafa was able to, just zoom around the map and down all four survivors here, that's not nothing in terms of momentum, and we see it down on Dan. I'm surprised that Garafa even picks here, but we are going to see a hook coming in here on the edge map, just kind of going for best result. Maybe interested in just camping out Dan here in the end game and securing, you know, seven stage game here on the Hillbilly.
We see that FTP right before we leave the trial.
Yeah, why not?
GG's to both teams. I mean, Invictus taking this first set, going up 1-0, and when we get back and load into this next match with this is the demo on Midwich, and it's gonna be Sorrow's pick. So I'm excited to see. We talked about them being ladder players, so they're definitely familiar with Demo's shred attack and probably going against a lot of demos. So I'm curious to see how they're gonna do in chase.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting set. We'll see how they can use the pallets on Midwich. Hopefully, able to get value out of them, but also use them sparingly enough that they're not going to completely run out of resources here in this Demogorgon set. But I am definitely going to be interested to see. Also interested to see if Garafa is kind of the primary killer coming through on the survivor team or on the team of Sorrow versus maybe somebody like Finesse who kind of plays a bunch of killers, or even another player who I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and especially with that, Red Moss coming in, that undetectable being on the demo for longer, it's gonna be a fun set to watch, Rich, for sure.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting set. Also excited to see the use of the red moss add-on for that additional undetectable, because I do love Demogorgon as a killer. The only the only rough thing about Demogorgon is that the portals are not particularly strong and don't see a lot of love, even in public matches, let alone competitive matches. So we will see if we can get some value out of the portals here in this Midwich set.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
is definitely what
yeah, it looks like they are going to be sending in finesse, if I'm not mistaken, on the Demogorgon.
curious to see how Finesse is going to do in this next match and see how well their portal placement is going to be. See the survivors coming in: Spitz, Dan, Kexo, and Pedro. Um, Same roster as the last match, but we saw some incredible things from them, and I'm sure we're going to see some more incredible things in this match as well.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm interested to see what's going on here. Like, it's it's weird because I'm only used to seeing other killers that are very different from demo on these midwich sets, so I don't really know what the nature of this demo set is going to be like. But I am definitely interested to see. It could play out kind of similar to a dredge set because we have a lot of the same elements. A kind of um, slightly above par chase power, and then a TP that can kind of allow the killer to get some surprise, some shock value onto the survivors. I'm also interested to see what builds come in, because if we see maybe some exposed downs from the killer side, that could make a pretty drastic difference. I don't know if they're interested in playing something like that, or something more, especially for this first game where you're just going for best result. They might be going for something more traditional with just more regression focused perks. You got any predictions in terms of that, Snipes?
It's hard to predict these sets. I mean, that's the joy in these Halloween sets, you know. They're very quirky, they're very unusual, and that's what makes the fun of it, you know. And so, I mean, coming out here, you know, we typically see a lot of like around 8 stages for demo, 8 to like 9 stages, a little bit on the higher end. But I I'm feeling a 4K here, Rich. I'm feeling a 4K, and I'm hoping I'm right because this will be a exciting match if so.
4K putting a lot of confidence into finesse coming in from Team Sorrow. We are getting into this game as we see the survivors all spawning here on Midwich downstairs. We also have builds coming in. So we do see Mindbreaker, Pain Resonance, Eruption, and Corrupt Intervention. So again, a more kind of regression focused build. And interesting choice from Finesse, kind of going for the Mindbreaker play. I don't, I don't know if that's. I know you see it in pub matches a lot, kind of trying to get value out of your pain res to make sure that people scream. But I mean, there's no DMS in play, so I don't think that's what we're seeing here. Just kind of valuing the exhaustion, maybe trying to prevent people from getting any value out of those exhaustion perks in this match. As we do see the first survivor found, Kexo here. Finesse just going to do a little bit of zoning, maybe Kexo taking the back of this room. This should be a guarantee. Yeah.
That pallet being notoriously unsafe. Kexo will be taking the first hit, but now heading towards the God pallet, and we will just be seeing that comp drop just to get a little bit more distance here for Kexo. And those portals are being cleansed, so Finesse will have to put more down, and no balance landing. We did see the overcome actually on Kexo, so was able to get more distance here and just not able to shred around these beds here. And now this pallet being safe and is able to connect to this tile really well. And the shred coming out, instantly destroying that pallet, and now heading straight back to this, trying to maybe get a mind game off, but just no, shredding it and just moving on.
Yeah, I think this is what we're going to see a lot in this set. Oh, beautiful down there, actually, from Finesse. Getting it down onto Kexo, you know, it didn't come in insanely quickly, so we're not seeing a ridiculous start. It's relatively even, I would say, but maybe slightly earlier than you would normally expect from a Demogorgon, and that may be because of the nature of this this kind of mid-witch set. And we are going to see a pain res here on what could be a relatively strong hook position as well. I don't think that Finesse will be going for any sort of like extreme camping plays here, because Demogorgon is just not the type of killer that can really take advantage of that. And the down certainly didn't come through quickly enough to, you know, take advantage of that just by nature of hook trades. So yeah, Finesse is going to be venturing pretty far from the hook here, just trying to get some regression in on gens, maybe take some chases here. Second gen pops from Invictus. Finesse with a pretty good mind game, but Pedro does look out for it. And we see, maybe, I don't know if Finesse got kind of mind game there by the firecracker, but beautiful play from Pedro either way. And again, going in this back room, but there should be another guaranteed hit.
I mean, just beautifully played here from Pedro, and actually it dodges the hit, trying to get that exhaustion back from Mindbreaker to use that balance landing potentially. And we do now get that exhaustion from this ball, and we'll be able to just use this balance landing to get even more distance. So denying that hit at that pallet that we talked about was notoriously unsafe. Dodging that hit, just incredible. And now we are going to a place though where no resources are available. And so we are going to be seeing this first hit onto Pedro, but still extending that chase and, you know, not getting hit for so long is well done on the survivor side of Invictus.
Yeah, that resource management is something that we talked about quite a bit, and so many pallets got down so quickly that maybe that's why we're seeing Pedro kind of run into a dead zone there and end up having to take a hit. Now that said, I mean, we've got 3 survivors on gens here, so it's not looking particularly good for Team Sorrow either, even though they have gotten a couple strong hits. And a down here onto Pedro, but I mean, we've got a ton of gen progress coming in. 2 gens over halfway complete, and only 1 hook stage to show for it, and a second coming through. What do you make of this, Snipes? I mean, it's not looking good for Team Sorrow.
No, it is not indeed, and we already see Kexo setting up for this unhook, and we are going to be heading straight for that unhook just to apply more pressure here onto Finesse, getting that unhook, because 4 survivors running around the map is a lot scarier when you're on the killer side than 3, and we're actually going straight back, so maybe if they are healing under the hook, might be getting a little bit of value here, and yes, we are going to be seeing that, and Kexo is going to be trying to take this body block here for Pedro, and Shred attack does connect, so another hit, and now actually going to be taking chase here onto Kexo instead of Pedro. Both of them do have one hook, so not the worst target here for Invictus. Now, if you're Finesse, you kind of would be looking to maybe try and get this. This is a nice down though. That was very quick, and more pressure here as we see the 4th gen pop, and the 5th gen is going to be completed here just in a second.
Just crazy efficiency from Team Invictus here. I mean, 3 hook stages going into the end game. It's not what Finesse wanted to see. And I have a feeling that even if Finesse got a fresh hook down there, I don't think another pain res would have come through. Those gens were basically complete by the time that down came through. So I think, I mean, even based on the way Finesse is playing right now, they just know that they're not going to be able to get much more value. So they're going to try to camp out Kexo here in the end game and just try to secure one more stage to try to maybe get a viable win or tie condition for the team, which is the best play you can make. But the survivors of Team Invictus know that Demogorgon's not the strongest killer, so they might be able to make something happen here and get out with just 3 stages.
We see Dan 99ing the sprint burst to maybe play for this potential pull, and looks like the survivors of Invictus are actually coming in. We are going to be getting that unhook. It's not going to be a trade. However, are we going to be giving up more stages here? I mean, they still have to make it to the exit gate. That sprint burst was able to get some distance here, and it looks like it might actually just be a 4 out. It's a little bit of a mess here in the end game, but Kexo going down. A good attempt from the survivors of Invictus. Unfortunately, Kexo is not going to be able to make it out. That is the best case scenario, though. Already being on Death Hook, it is only worth one more stage for Finesse. So one 4 stage here for Finesse. That is brutal and not what we want to see. But again, this set is a little bit weird. It's a little bit different than what you're used to. We don't really have a grasp of what the normality is. So this could be a normal result coming out.
Yeah, 4 stages too fresh, not the result that Finesse was looking for. And I want to say, beautifully played from Team Invictus at the end game there. They essentially went for the save in a way that ensured that they wouldn't get punished, because they had the death hook survivor kind of trailing behind everybody else in Kexo, and worst case scenario, if Finesse does kind of catch somebody out in the exit gate like we did see, they still just get away with the same result as they would have if they had just all gotten out in the first place. So really amazingly played there from Invictus, and Finesse gave it best effort. Honestly, had some solid chases, but with a killer like Demogorgon, you see an extremely efficient team of survivors that is playing around your stealth well, and it's tough to make anything happen, honestly. Uh, Now, what I'm interested to see in this following set, firstly, is who's playing killer, because I know that Team Invictus has a couple extremely strong, top of their class sort of killer players. But also, I'm interested to see if they try to make any more use of the undetectable that Demogorgon's Red Moss add-on kind of has to offer. So I did see that we certainly weren't trying to overuse that Team Sorrow in the first game. And do you think that we're going to see anything different here in this next game from Invictus Snipes, or is that undetectable just kind of an afterthought for these teams?
I mean, at the end of the day, the undetectables used to catch off survivors, and with them being in comms and them being, still well versed on these indoor maps and just in general, all the maps, you got to expect their comms are going to be on point. They're going to know where the portals are at. They're going to know where the killer is at for the most part. We could see some catching off guard here and there, but for the most part, they're going to have an idea of where that location is. And at the end of the day, you need to get downs, you need to get hooks, and you need to get those gens regressed. we did see pain res being used from finesse, which is interesting. We typically don't see it on midwich specifically because of how RNG those scourge hooks can be. You could get them all on the bottom side or all in one corner, and it's very RNG heavy on if you're going to get lucky. So I'm curious to see if maybe um, Rocket here coming in, that is a name that you are familiar with and also is very, very good with demo.
Yeah, Rocket with probably about as much 1v1 experience as as a person can get in DBD, and a lot of those sets are on the Demogorgon. Rocket gonna be maybe putting in a crazy performance here. We will see, but he doesn't have to. At the end of the day, all he needs is 5 stages or 4 stages with 3 fresh hooks to get the win here. So Rocket definitely going to be feeling confident going into this game. I'm interested to see the build as well. You mentioned pain res, not really commonplace on midwich. We'll see if Rocket has the kind of the same approach as finesse, or if we're going to see a bit of a different build. I'm definitely curious. I want to see more undetectable. I want to see, we're playing the All Hallows League. I want to see these guys get jump scared, but it is difficult to do so. Like you mentioned, they're on comms. They're going to have really solid comms, but we did see the survivors get caught out a bit in that first set on Hillbilly, so we'll see if we can make the same happen on Demogorgon.
Now, something I want to see going off of that undetectable, using that red moss and maybe applying some dragon's grip. It's a very common perk we've seen on a lot of other killers, but added on top of this undetectable, Dragon's Grip can be really, really detrimental, especially if you're on that exposed and it's an indoor map. The killer has undetectable. You do not want to be touching any generators if you do not know where the killer is at.
Yeah, 100%. And I mentioned, if we see some exposed downs, that could be something that kind of turns the tide in these games. It is still, by nature, just extremely difficult to actually catch a team of this caliber kind of off guard. So I'm hoping, but also kind of doubting that we're going to see any sort of exposed shenanigans. But that said, Rocket, able to confirm an M1 kind of incredibly well compared to many other people. So I'm excited to see if we get the exposed or not. What's your prediction here, Snipes? Do you think that the survivors are going to be able to? I mean, they had a tough win condition in the first set. They have another tough win condition here. I want to see things stay competitive here.
Yes, and we want to see that fifth set with the special rule set. So we are hoping for this match to go to the fifth set. Now, I mean, we mentioned this being Sorrow's set, right? This is their pick. Demo is their pick. They are also ladder players. They have a lot of experience, and also Rocket has a lot of experience on 1v1 demo. Um, Not particularly midwich demo, but some mechanics still can apply. I have good hopes. I was rooting for a 4K, and I think I was a little bit over eager in the first set. Um, we talked about Dredge being super strong with some of these palettes, and yeah, demo just unfortunately has to just break them with a shred and move on. Can't really mind game them too much, otherwise you're gonna spend too much time, and gens will just completely fly. Now we are loading into this next match. Sorrow is down 0-1. Can they bring this to a 1-1 and head into the third match with some momentum? We will see here, Rich.
Yeah, I have bad news for Dragon's Grip enjoyers. Unfortunately, Rocket not electing to bring any sort of exposed perks here, so just going for kind of a classic regression build with the Pain Res, Pop, Eruption, and Corrupt Intervention. Does find a survivor here pretty quickly, something we're used to seeing on Midwich. And getting a God Palette out of the way to sort of start the game here. We'll see how much Rocket does want to just commit to chases this game. Can be very liberal. Oh my god. Yeah, that was a shred. That was a shred and a half. Snipes. Rocket kind of showing the expertise immediately and doing a very elaborate mind game here on the extreme long wall of Midwich. I love to see those as well. Rocket impressing in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's just showing how well he's versed at the Demogorgon. We are taking chase here onto Garafa, continuing this chase, actually faking the shred, but we saw it earlier, this Howl right here. Very well
Wow.
connected, but actually Garafa goes down to an M1 here, maybe hesitating just a second. A flashbang save. What was it, flashlight? No, nothing. Meds just dropped down from the heavens, just say hello to Mr. Rocket, and we will be seeing the first hook of the match.
Yeah, Med's just kind of baiting the casters there. Just was interested in trying to make us think something was going to happen. Maybe in that stagger, unable to drop the firecracker, and that's what we saw there. So tried to go for it and wasn't able to. And this start from Rocket is just crazy. And we did see some awesome Rocket camera movement to kind of get that first M1 confirmed. So I love to see that as well. That first chase just super impressive. And Rocket gonna be playing essentially as safe as possible here to just confirm the win condition that's, you know, honestly very strong for Rocket's team.
Yeah, just incredible here. We see some portals, maybe trying to get used out of this undetectable and maybe catching some survivors off on gens, but looks like they are working on the opposite side of the map from where Garafa is hooked. And the second stage is slowly creeping up. Med's still injured, so possibly going to be seeing a couple gens pop here. We see some scratch marks here, so potentially someone trying to come in for this unhook. First gen does pop, but I think Garafa is just going to be unfortunately hitting second.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for Rocket not to just stay here and make sure that somebody is not about to come in for the same save last second. Like, you give up a lot of value by camping there, but also you can afford to do that when you have a win condition such as this. And now we see the full anti-camp bar not coming into play. The survivors are not allowed to get that confirmed self-unhook. So they do have to kind of manually get the save there onto Garafa at some point. We see the reset come in onto Meds, and Finesse taking a chase here in the library area. Playing this unsafe pallet really well, honestly, just kind of repeatedly choosing to not vault the pallet. Kind of a more safe play when you're on an extremely unsafe pallet like that is just to make sure that when you do take the M1, you take it in a solid position so that you don't get too tapped in that same room. So Finesse honestly played the first part of this chase really well. We'll see if they can continue here. Rocket just getting resources out of the way, and the resource density and resource management that we saw might come into play, but another down onto Finesse. I mean, Rocket is doing these like full-length shreds that I honestly just don't see that often. Snipes, so I'm impressed here.
Goes to show just the confidence that Rocket has when it comes to these shred attacks. And we saw a attempt from Meds, maybe thinking Garafa was going to go back to that same hook. Unfortunately, Firecracker does not connect here, and Rocket seems like he is aware that someone is around this area, and it will be checking around, maybe searching some lockers. But I think Meds was searching around the area. Yes, we'll be getting caught out here. That is unfortunate. Meds possibly going for that unhook onto Finesse when Rocket left, but now we are going to be heading to this room. It's very safe when played right, but maybe going for a mind game. And Meds holding that check spot beautifully, but it's going to get it.
Oh
Does dodge
God.
it just narrowly, but oh my god, what a shred that would have been.
Yeah, I want to put things into perspective for the viewer here. I was going to say, if a hook comes in onto Fancy or Meds, we are going to see a win for Team Invictus in this set. And as I say, I mean, Meds gets down, and we're going to see that fourth stage confirmed with 3 fresh hooks, that being kind of the deciding factor in a game where stages are tied. So, yeah, Rocket already here at 3 gens completed, going to be confirming the win condition. So they are, obviously, all teams are still going to play for best result. We are going to see, again, that kind of whether the survivors of sorrow can get a momentum shift here. You know, if they have a juice or chase and are able to get everybody out the door with no more hook stages, they're going to be feeling a lot better going into this third set, whether or not it makes the difference in this set.
Yeah, and just being down 2-0, Sorrow, can they bring this back? You know, Army Tau taking chase here onto Finesse again, one of those long stretches, just the distance not being there, and we are going to be seeing that bounce landing, and actually not opting to not drop that pallet, which is considered a safe pallet when dropping from above, and just heading over into one more of these classroom rooms, which I believe this pallet is dropped. So yeah, it does still have this god pallet though. Again, I mean, being that win con already met, you're just trying to play for your best result possible to try and maybe get momentum here. And you are seeing a teleport here, maybe trying to catch Finesse off guard. Thankfully, he does get sight of Rocket, so we'll be just heading back towards the downstairs area.
Yeah, Rocket going for the most the most ambitious mind games here, and they're actually working. Rocket somehow making them work. I feel like these are the kind of mind games where I run into Finesse just on a solo queue survivor game while he's win streaking, and he hits me with these mind games. And now Rocket doing it right back to Finesse, kind of making these survivors almost look amateur with just how absurdly skilled he is at the 1v1, and specifically with Demogorgon. Though Finesse obviously holding his own in chase here, just doing an insane job on these 50s. Oh, we do finally see the down come in. So, I mean, Finesse going to be feeling maybe a little bit better after that chase. Kind of a band-aid on what is otherwise a very difficult wound to kind of handle here. We are going to see the last gen pop shortly. No pain res coming in as it was already used on Finesse. And unless this interruption happens very quickly, which it may, we do see a TP over to the high progress gen, but it does get completed. Oh no, wait. Wait, Snipes, Rocket able to interrupt that actually.
That was so close to being complete, and just unfortunately not getting completed, and so that pop and eruption is going to be coming out here. We are getting the unhook here, or the heal, I should say, onto Finesse, but just really unfortunate that they didn't get that gen done.
All right,
That
Rocket's
could have
showing
been
off
the
at this
win.
point. I mean, that was crazy. Yeah, I'm surprised the meds didn't just stick that gen 100%. That actually makes me wonder if nerves are kind of coming into play. I know that this is at least one of, if not the first time that Team Sorrow has played on the main stage at DBDLeague. Did come in from the lower bracket of the group stage, so amazing job to even get to this point. But on the main stage, you know, the nerves come into play probably 10 times as much, I would say. And we see maybe some questionable plays like the inability to pop that gen there from meds.
And especially with at a caliber of this team, you know, like high caliber, like Invictus being so strong. And attempt at a shred at this window will just narrowly miss meds here. That final gen does pop though, as we see. Fancy just unfortunately, or I mean, Rocket unfortunately unable to use that pain res on to Fancy, and Finesse trying to actually take some chase here. Again, playing for that best win con as possible, you know. Finesse only worth 1, while Meds here is worth 2. We do have a couple body blocks potentially coming in from Finesse and Garafa, but Meds is actually just kind of stuck in this room right here, and gonna be actually getting out, but can get anywhere else. We are taking chase back to this very unsafe pallet. Garafa trying to come in for this body block will be successful, and now I think we're going to see one more stage come out, and the rest of the team Sorrow will just be leaving through the exit gates. Very well played. I mean, they did get out, so that is something to applaud them on, especially on this set. But we will be taking the Mori onto Grafa, or no, we're just going to be opting for the hook. I mean, beautifully played from Rocket here.
Crazy performance from Rocket, and you know we kind of expected it going in. Rocket just somebody who's on both killer and survivor able to make things happen that any player would be, you know, just baffled by. So we do see the result come in the favor of Invictus there. So they're going to be up 2-0 going into this set 3, starting the more traditional balancing here. What kind of what kind of momentum shift does Sorrow need to keep things competitive at this point, Snipes? I mean, they're playing against one of the best teams to ever do it, and they're down 2 sets. Are you giving up at that point? You can't. You can't.
Absolutely, you can't. They will need a strong result here. We are going to Vecna, so that will be exciting. And I mean, Vecna is a he's a strong-ish killer, and especially with the map that we are seeing, you know, being on DDS, we the elevation with the skeletons having that advantage of, you can't no longer crouch them, having to actually pay attention to where they are at could catch some survivors off guard.
Yeah, I'm not naming names, but I have 100% seen some survivors that are going to be in this lobby get caught off guard by skeletons that were probably 15 meters away. So I'm very interested to see if we get any of that today. But either way, Invictus is feeling really good going into this. Now, if I'm not, I think we may see Pedro on the killer side for Invictus. I'll let you guys know when we know that. But we know that we're seeing Vecna, and we know that we're going to DDS. Now, one of the beautiful things about kind of choosing our own balancing here at DBDLeague is that we are able to kind of fine tune these sets to be a little bit more competitive. So Vecna, even though even though not seen as the most, the strongest killer, certainly not an S tier killer on anybody's tier list, we are going to see a lot of, like you mentioned, elevation differences that are in play on Dead Dog Saloon, even at traditionally safe structures like Shack. There are elevation plays that Vecna can make. So we're going to see very solid use, I'm sure, of the skeletons from both sides killers. But these survivors are going to be, that's obviously very much on their radar, and we'll see how well they can play around it.
And given DDS, we typically see, if they get that Gallows 3-gen, it's a very, very strong 3-gen to hold. And a killer like Vecna could potentially hold that extremely well. And as we are getting into this gold balancing set, we are going to be seeing a little bit more of the usual perks and the kind of usual play style of these killers instead of a little bit of quirkier sets with the Halloween sets. So I'm excited to see how Team Sorrow is going to come in after those two Halloween sets, get the nerves out, shake it out a little bit, and get the spooks out to say. And now coming into this and facing Invictus head on.
Yeah, maybe Team Sorrow is just not a big fan of Halloween. So these first two sets that got out of the way, they're thinking, okay, now we get to our kind of element and get these traditional balancing sets. Um, but no, they really could be feeling more comfortable going into these sets. Obviously, you don't often see Hillbilly on Hawkins and Demogorgon on Midwich in on the main stage like this. So Sorrow is definitely going to be more well practiced on this Lich DDS set and potentially further sets beyond that. So I'm excited to see if they can kind of make something happen when they're feeling a little bit more comfortable. Now, that said, they are down two sets. So maybe that comfort with the regular balancing is offset by the discomfort of you have to win this set or else you're out of the tournament. Not out of the tournament, pushed to the lower bracket, I should say.
Yeah, fortunately for Sorrow, if they do lose today, only time will tell. They will be going to the lower bracket where they still have redemption to make it and potentially win. But if we do win this set, we go into Doctor, which is a heavily, teamwork teamwork killer with the body blocks coming in, and Doctor is just unfortunately sometimes unable to capitalize on that. So I have strong hopes here for Sorrow if they make it through this Lich set, but we are loading into it currently. Can Team Sorrow bring it back? That is the question everyone is asking, and that is what we will determine right here as this match is loading.
Yeah, I have faith in our survivors as usual, Snipes. I think that any team on this stage could really, upset any other team on this stage. I don't think anything is a foregone conclusion. So I'm excited to see if the survivors of Team Sorrow can make something happen here. If they do, though, I mean, I'm questioning even what we're going to see in set 4. Like you mentioned, it's Doctor, a heavily teamwork-based set, and if you've ever sat in on the comms of Team Invictus, you know that that is difficult to outclass. But we are loading in here on the DDS Vecna set. You see Pedro here spawning in the bottom left of the map, going up towards main, immediately does see a survivor on the balcony and gets some free game sense onto Finesse here to start the game, so is going to get some free free vision onto multiple survivors here. How do you think that the teams are going to start this game? Do you think they're going to play? I mean, they got to play more aggressively. They can't wait out Corrupt or anything like that now.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have this typical Gallows regen, which is, you know, good to see for Sorrow. And actually, picking that Shack Power right up, he said, nope, we are not dropping it at 5 gens today. The DVD community would be upset with you. And we are taking it towards this wagon pallet, which is also a pretty safe pallet, but now going to be trying to bloodlust around here. We do see these gens by main actually. Corrupted has a pretty tight 3 gen. Actually, Gruffa coming in for a body block, and now using that flight to try and catch off Finesse here at the main building. Is it going to be enough? It's not, unfortunately, and this is well played start from Team Sorrow.
Yeah, good start from Team Sorrow for sure. We do see a gen pop for the first down, which is not something that we're not used to seeing here. So we do see. I mean, I'm interested to see if a pain res comes through here because I don't know if any other gen actually has progress. So we may see a hook on a pain res and not actually a stack taken. Though Fancy actually does pop on a gen right before the hook. Though it does seem they had some progress on a different gen because Fancy's gen does not take that pain res. So Pedro getting a hook here, kind of choosing the hook placement very precisely in the back of the map there. We'll be interested in keeping the gameplay onto this top portion of the map. And we do see maybe a pop goes the weasel threatened on a gen, but just not enough progress for it to actually be worth it to spend the time. So Pedro does right away head back to the hook and just tries to kind of take advantage of this, you know, somewhat early hook and get some camp value out of it.
Looks like Meds will be stealthing for this with the urban evasion, trying to get this unhook potentially before second stage, and Fancy and Graffa just grinding out those generators in the background. And we see a similar build from the demo match, and actually we are going to be getting that unhook for free.
That's
basically
huge.
That is very huge for the survivors of Sorrow, and now we are going to be seeing that tunnel out coming out onto Finesse. The fake of the mage hand, very well played here from Pedro, and now playing the short side, and actually he's just taking the hit on a Meds who is lurking nearby and just saying to get away from this chase.
Yeah, just making sure that no body blocks can come in kind of right when they need it, and making sure that Finesse is kind of alone in this chase. So does actually get the quick down onto Finesse for this second hook. So I don't know. I do feel like Pedro got pretty punished for that early play, just really focusing on the camp on the top of the map and then kind of letting it get away from him for free.
Yeah, I mean, we already see 3 gens pop for only 2 hooks, and now look at this gen spread. Very well placed for Team Sorrow, and I mean, maybe it was a mistake on Pedro giving up this 3 gen by main here instead of playing for that hook that got unhooked for free basically from Meds as well. Like, and now all survivors are healthy. This is just becoming very grim for Pedro.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't blame Pedro. There's not an incredible 3-gen to begin with. Even if you try to make a 3-gen happen at the main building on Dead Dog Saloon, I mean, that gen takes 20 minutes to walk up and get to, so it's kind of a lose-lose. But even then, just that camp play getting maximally punished here, and an impressive performance so far by the survivors of Team Sorrow. The only thing that, you know, you could really criticize them for is that second chase from Finesse kind of ended a lot more quickly than it maybe should have. Maybe when Pedro took that hit onto Meds mid-chase with Finesse, Finesse could have gotten some distance over towards the windmill side of the map. But either way, they're in a great position right now, and they're about to set up for this. Oh, two-man save, but Pedro gets the body block. Oh my God, that's a
No.
crazy play from Pedro. Finesse fully dead now, and that might have turned the tide entirely.
That was unfortunate. The double body blocks we saw trying to come, or the double save attempt coming in, and just unfortunately it was out of time, and so Finesse will be dying, and Meds and will be getting injured, and Fancy going up on the hook. That was just really good body blocking there from Pedro to deny that, and that's just wow. That's so unfortunate. You know, we talked about Sorrow having the advantage here and having so much momentum, and it's almost like Pedro just took that back with that play right there.
Yeah, I would say momentum entirely swung back into Pedro's favor. I mean, there are some gens with high progress, but I don't think the survivors are going to be able to pressure them effectively enough to actually get outs here. But we will see. Again, they've done some impressive things so far in this set, but Pedro just playing so well to get that confirmed kill onto Finesse. Oh, and another down here onto Garafa with the beautiful use of the skeletons there. Just as we talked about before the set, that shack elevation just makes it so the birds are kind of uncounterable almost on that tile.
Yeah, just very well played here from Pedro, and now it's almost like the survivors of Sorrow are scrambling around to try and make do. They only have one gen remaining here, but now, I mean, still a pain res in the pocket, and we have that top eruption combo to kind of stop these gens from regressing, and especially with the flight, you know, being extended as it was quite recently. You can fly so much further than you could before.
Yeah, flight speed is crazy nowadays. We'll see if Pedro actually uses it. Going for another camp in the 3v1 onto Garafa is an interesting play, to be sure. Pedro, maybe with that massive game sense, just is totally confident that this distant gen has no progress, and does find actually Fancy lurking for the unhook, which is always a big momentum swing in the favor of the killer. So Fancy making the smart play, taking chase away from the hook here, but that does force Meds injured to come in and try to make something happen. Another amazing kind of use of those insta skeletons. Fancy unable to crouch on time. You have to preemptively crouch if Vecna spawns the skeletons right on top of you. And Pedro actually kind of smells blood in the water here and is going for a slug in the 3v1 Snipes.
I mean, both survivors were injured, and we did see the reset coming on to Meds, but now Garafa taking chase here to the corner. Has the pallet to work with, but that mage hand once again in with the boots add-on coming in, the boots of speed, giving them that haste, just denying them getting back around to that pallet. We'll be seeing another hook here onto Garafa. Meds does rotate around for the pickup onto Fancy, but I mean, with these cooldowns, Pedro is just going straight back with his fly and just traverses the entire map to get back to where Fancy was down.
Yeah, just amazing mobility here from Vecna, showing that, you know, although not maybe not as mobile as a killer like Blight or Billy, still able to keep up and make sure that these survivors are fully pressured in the 3v1. They're not able to get anything done. There's no gen progress really coming in for the past, you know, 2-3 minutes in this game, which is amazing for Pedro, of course. We are going to see a chase come in here on the main building for the first time this game, and we'll see if Pedro is able to maybe make some more use of that elevation, maybe get some more impressive skeletons. But no, it does just leave the main building. Back to the hook, wants that guaranteed value at this point.
Now Garafa kind of cornered here, has to make a play and try and make it out of this corner. The skeletons coming in. Oh,
wow.
They just
How
barely
did that
missed.
miss?
I thought for sure that was going to connect, and we again see Meds around for the hit tank. And actually, Pedro's going to be opting to go for Meds now. This is the final fresh hook. This is the final pain res. And we're going to the corner of the map, and the eruption procs, so we know where Fancy's at. We know where Garafa's at. And now we get a hook onto Meds, the final pain res. But are we just going to opt for the basement? Yeah, I mean, that is the smart play in this case. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's I'm interested to not see the decision to try to go for a pain res hook here, given that, that essentially was a free pain res stack onto meds. They got the 2-tap very quickly onto meds. But elects for the basement instead. I mean, the basement does have even higher value in a 3v1 than it typically does in a 4v1, especially when both survivors that are not on hook are injured, so you can basically guarantee that nobody's getting in there for free and getting the unhook. You'll get a trade at the very least. And Pedro just commits to a chase with Fancy here. Fancy drops the pallet, but we see this time and time again. Pedro's using that mage hand at the absolute perfect time, making it a lose-lose for the survivors, whether they actually drop the pallet or not. Honestly, I wonder if Pedro did a lot of prep for this set, or maybe just has a lot of Vecna experience outside of tournament, because there's a reason they pick him for this set, and he's showing why.
And I do want to point out that beautiful bait play from Fancy, actually, playing near that main building, near that basement hook, and trying to, entice Pedro into a chase. That way, Garafa, who was sneaking nearby in the bushes, could get that unhook safely in the basement. And I mean, unfortunate for Sorrow, Fancy wasn't able to have a long chase, and they just keep going down to this mage hand. It's very, very powerful. But there is counters, faking the pallet drop and just running towards that window could have maybe been an option for the survivors, but it's really hard to think of that in the moment. You can look on it hindsight and be like, wow, if I would have just ran and made it to that window, I could have extended the chase. But again, hindsight is 2020. It is definitely hard to read in the moment with all this pressure going on you.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to stay mindful, especially, we've mentioned a lot the nerves that may be going on here for Team Sorrow. Invictus is used to this. Team Invictus, I mean, they've been on the main stage a ton of times, gotten about 1 million wins, and the survivors of Team Sorrow are just not, they don't have quite the same level of experience. So maybe a lot of the things that they have to actually be cognizant of in the moment, they're not really second nature like they are for Team Invictus, perhaps. So we definitely see some of that in play. And at this stage, Pedro, I mean, in the 2v1, just making sure that no gen gets popped. You essentially know there's a 4K result coming through at this point, and you just want to make sure that it's a 4K1 and not a 4K0 from Invictus's perspective. So that's what Pedro is here trying to confirm, not prioritizing chase right at this moment. But does find meds, and now will probably commit to a chase, knowing that Jen is not at risk of being popped anytime soon. Oh, beautiful dodge there. Beautiful dodge there from meds.
Urban Evasion almost, giving him that slight advantage here, and that is just going to be another down to the mage hand. So unfortunate, and we are going to be sending out that orb towards main, so Garafa's location will be revealed to Pedro, and we're looking at a 4K1, which it's a solid result for, I would say, both sides. We didn't see Pedro necessarily hold a 3-gen, but he was able to apply pressure with his chases. Now, if this killer for Team Sorrow can come out and hold a 3-gen, we can be looking at a tiebreaker. And going into the tiebreaker, both teams are familiar with 1v1, maybe thinking there's a ghost pallet there, but we are going to be seeing the down onto Garafa. And that is the confirmed 4K1, a solid result coming out from Pedro.
Yeah, awesome result from Pedro, especially. It's not a result that we're not used to seeing on Vecna. I mean, it's a 4K1 is certainly not unheard of. I would say it's not even, that far out of the realm of possibility. 4K2, you might be stretching. But to see this 4K1 come in from Pedro, and in a situation where there wasn't even, a particularly strong 3-gen, I mean, that's impressive. So it's like you mentioned, we may see a 3-gen hold from the killer on Team Sorrow, and that may allow them to make something happen. But once again, I mean, Invictus just putting up a really solid performance in the first game of a set, and really putting the pressure on Team Sorrow to match or exceed that performance. So far, they haven't been able to do it, but Snipes, we mentioned, in these more traditional sets, they might be a bit more comfortable, especially having, gone through that group stage bracket. So we'll see if they can make something happen here. And I mean, I'm kind of losing faith in Team Sorrow. It's not so much losing faith in them. It's more so just being ever so impressed by Team Invictus's play. I mean, I know I've played against the folks from Team Sorrow at least a couple times, and they are vastly better than me at the game. I'll say that they're impressive players in and of themselves, but Team Invictus, I mean, they're just making it seem like they're on another level. Snipes.
You are absolutely correct, Rich. Team Invictus has been in the game for a long time and been in the comp scene for so long. They have so much experience under their belt, and just they have so much cohesion, I would say. They play together well, and unfortunately, just Sorrow just is coming out on the wrong foot today.
Yeah. So one thing we are going to see from going into this next set, and let me double check this, but Snipes, I think we have a small tie-breaking penalty for Team Sorrow. So I think they're actually they get essentially minus half a stage going into this game. Is that right?
Yes, we are seeing it for the contradicting offerings of .5 hook state coming in. It is very unfortunate to see coming for Sorrow. That means the 4K1 is just
That's a
not a
loss for Team Sorrow. Yeah.
icon anymore.
I mean, that's essentially like the cherry on top of what we've seen during this entire match is Sorrow just kind of fighting. They're just working against the current, and I mean this small tiebreaker is going to make things just 10 times more difficult for them. I mean, we talked about 4K1 being something that is maybe a little bit above average on Lich. I mean, now they have to 4K2 to win still, but now if they 4K1, they lose. So their tie condition is, I mean, it's not even particularly attainable here.
Yeah, just super unfortunate for Team Sorrow. It's just the pressure mounting onto them even further. And I mean, we are going to be seeing finesse onto the killer. We saw a pretty unfortunate result on demo, only getting 4 stages. But, again, we talked about being more standard set, potentially bringing this back. 4K2 would be an incredible result, especially on the team that we are facing.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I have a lot of faith in Finesse as a killer. I've seen Finesse perform incredibly well in 1,000 killer matches, but it's a totally different situation when you're playing against four of the best survivors in the game. So there's that plus a lot of pressure, um, on the on Finesse from Team Sorrow to just make something happen here, and you're even feeling extra bad because of the the minus .5 hook stages from the contradicting offerings. So uh, everything's stacked against Finesse, and I want to see how he performs under this pressure.
Yeah, they aren't out of it quite yet after so if they do lose this set, they will be going down to the lower where they have a chance to redeem themselves and maybe bring it back and show us what they are made of. Now we are going to be loading into what could be the final set for this set of Invictus versus Sorrow.
Yeah, this could be the final set of the match. It's looking increasingly unlikely that we're not going to see that set five with a special AHL twist. But again, anything could happen. I really do think that any of these teams could make a big upset happen. Uh, we'll see if Sarah can do that today, and maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe we see a similar offering mistake here from Invictus, but I'm highly doubting that, especially since it just came up. But we are going to be loading into this. with Finesse on Vecna. Again, we were playing on the Dead Dog Saloon. A lot of opportunities for elevation plays from Vecna. Beautiful use of Mage Hand. Came in from Pedro in set 1. An interesting piece of counterplay that we didn't exactly see from Survivors in our first set, in our first game of this set here, is that you can oftentimes run in and body block Vecna at a pallet after he uses Mage Hand to pick it up, and just try to drop it on him instantly as soon as you can. Really smart play here too from Invictus, just pre-dropping pallets, not even in chase. So I wonder if that's going to be a trend that we see continuing here. Snipes, are they going to drop every pallet on the map before they're even in chase?
I mean, that was the comp drop of all comp drops here as we're taking chase here on this onto this new tile here. An attempt at the skeleton through the wall, but unfortunately going to be just getting denied, and Spitz taking chase here over onto the water tower. A pallet that is not necessarily safe. Some mind games came out into Finesse, just auto-aimed, unfortunately going to be missing, and another miss. Just Spitz doing Spitz things, as I would say, and we are going to be seeing that first tag come out though, but I mean, already very extensive chase.
Yeah, Spitz playing amazing so far. Another pre-drop, just making sure you don't get caught out by Mage Hand. I mean, this is basically a clinic on how to play against Vecna here from Spitz in our first chase. Plays around the skeletons perfectly here, playing around Mage Hand perfectly for what's essentially a third time. But does get downed. Now Finesse will be able to hook in the corner. We'll see if a Pain Res is available back here. Great start from the Survivors of Invictus though, Snipes.
Absolutely, and we see those gens getting worked in the distance here. 3 separate generators already at super high progress. We are going to be seeing that Pain Res come out here on to Kexa's gen, but I mean, it's not going to do very much unless he can get over there. Same build, we do see a little bit of a change in the offerings though. We actually see this Raven's Feather coming out, which gives you more time on your fly, so you're able to get a little bit more distance when using it. And one gen pops, and these two are very close, and actually Kexa just pops it right inside, right in Finesse's face. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that main gen just popping anytime soon. Actually, no, they do get the unhook, and this is just super unfortunate.
Yeah, tough spot so far for Finesse here on the Vecna. They pre-drop Shack Pallet. There's just all these pre-drops just very distinctly remove any real possibility of getting value out of Mage Hand, which I mean, it's one of Vecna's 2 primary powers really that you can use in chase. So Finesse here trying to mind game. Oh, does actually get the mind game onto Spitz with the birds at Shack. Very impressive play there actually from Finesse, securing that down. It may be too little too late though. We do see this gen. It is high progress, but Finesse is going to get a hook right next to it, so that can always be big. We'll see if Finesse can kind of snowball this, or maybe even just play this slowly and secure it into a strong result.
Yeah, I think maybe Spitz thinking basement was there and trying to go down and dodge the skeletons, but still, a second stage here on to Spitz is good, and if Finesse can get that tunnel out and maybe start applying this pressure in the 3v1, could be looking at a very, very strong result. And it looks like we have a bit of a 4gen. Yeah, we do have a bit of a 4gen on this water tower side of the map. They're all right around this hook as well. And with Eruption being in play, it's hard to determine what can happen here.
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure, but I mean, all Invictus has to do in order to make something, in order to achieve their win condition here, is pop 1 more gen. That's going to be really difficult, even if there is a 4 gen. It's really difficult for Vecna to even defend a 3 gen against 4 survivors of this caliber, let alone a 4 gen. So, I mean, you see 2 gens, one of them at 40, one of them at around 50%. I mean, survivors just putting absolute maximal pressure and confirming the body block here using the structures that are fully consistent on DDS, but they do miss it eventually. So does get some, I believe that was eruption value onto Rocket, and even though Finesse eventually secured this down, we have 2 survivors lurking for the pallet save. Snipes, this is I mean, this is like it's like a game of chess.
It is so hard for Finesse to pick up here when two survivors are pressuring it, and we just see Kexo on the gen in the distance here, confirming the win con, and will be confirming the 3-0 for Invictus. And I mean, this is just, what do you even do in this case? What do you even do, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, Finesse doing what he can, but yeah, Invictus just slowly putting pressure on the king while walking that pawn up to the final rank, and does achieve the win condition here. Invictus, an incredibly impressive performance. Going to be taking this match 3-0 and sending Sorrow here to lower bracket. No, I'm still invested to see how the final moments of this set turns out. We did see a loadout mistake from Team Sorrow, so normally this would have been a if Finesse can 4K here, this would have been a tie. So it isn't in this case, but I'm interested to see if Finesse can make the would-be tie condition happen. Even that, though, Snipes looks very unlikely with this gen in the top left of the map being so high progress.
Yeah, and especially losing Spitz, your tunnel out, 4 survivors up. We talked about how detrimental it can be to, the killer, and applying all that pressure all over the map. However, survivors are full injured here, and actually Kexo getting caught out here on this pallet, so we will be seeing a hook come out and potentially another pain res. We see Dan and Rocket trying to finish that last center. They're doubling it. It is so close. They are just going to be opting to leave, though, and not read it, and just play for their best result here. But again, 4 survivors injured. This could result in a closer result than we were expecting.
Yeah, could be, best case scenario, a snowball here from Finesse to make the 4K1 happen. I'm sure that would make Team Sorrow feel a little bit better, putting up such a result against Team Invictus going into the lower bracket that they are being put in after this match. However, I really don't think that's going to happen, as we see Spitz almost complete with this gen, about 90%. Now, it is most likely going to get pain res, so it's not... Yeah, it does take the pain res, so it's not instantly going to be completed. But these two gens that have high progress are just too far for Finesse to really defend, and at this point, he's playing for hook stages.
Kexo baiting out Finesse beautifully here, while Spitz just cranks out that last generator. And again, the body block coming in from Dan, who just got off the hook, so does have that little bit of borrowed time. Just barely dodges it, but does get the hit at the window, because Kexo moved a little bit away from the skulls to try and avoid them. And now Finesse is going to be trying to slug this one out and maybe find some other survivors who are working these gates, or, running around the map. We do see, I believe this is Dan here. No, this is Rocket. Actually, we haven't seen Rocket all game. He has just been busy working these generators, which is sight to see. So we're going to be taking chase here, and that is a fresh hook. So, at the very least, Finesse can say he got the full-on fresh hooks, but that was I believe a head-on coming out from Spitz, who got the stun out onto Finesse.
Yeah, Spitz, maybe #1 global head-on user, just showing his prowess in that regard there. Perfect timing, even cross ping with that head-on. Finesse just gonna take this fresh hook onto Rocket, and I gotta imagine the camp is just coming through. The survivors of Invictus most likely not that interested in getting more value, but maybe, maybe we do see them try to save and assert some dominance here after an already foregone conclusion. But no, heading towards the exit gate, perhaps. Maybe some arguing comms right now as I see differing moves from the survivor.
And I think Spitz went towards the main building here, maybe trying to go play for that rotate here. The elevation we talked about earlier just is not going to be connecting here, and Spitz a little bit cheeky going for a window tech, but will be getting tagged for that. And Finesse is a little bit farther away. We are seeing that reset come out, so potentially the unhook coming out, and wow, that was really close. Spitz just very closely dodging that M1.
I think Spitz is just doing victory laps at this point. I mean, just the head-on play into the the attempted window tech at main. There's no other reason for that. So Spitz, I'm sure excited about the 3-0 result as the survivors of Invictus likely will be. They are going for the heal here, so I wonder if they are going to try to get this this extra hook stage out from Rocket. Looks like they are all running straight back, and we know 2 exit gates are fully opened. So I would be surprised actually if Finesse could stop this this save from happening, even with the mobility that Fly offers.
And it looks like Skeletons of the Damned are off cooldown. So, oh no, never mind. I was mistaken. He does have the Skeletons. The hit coming up from Spitz. Dan getting that unhook here. And I mean, they're going to try and play for this best result here. Can they do it? We still have one healthy survivor able to come in for a body block, and even potentially Spitz or Rocket coming in, maybe taking a down. But I think they're just going to be able to get 4 out. Looks like the Fly unfortunately got a little bit messed up here. And so, I mean, playing for the best result, obviously, they get that 4 out. It was very well played.
Yeah, Finesse just gets turned around in the end game, and the survivors of Invictus, I think, escape with only 6 stages off that game. So incredibly impressive performance. I'm very interested to see how Sorrow performs now that they've got a little bit of experience under their belt. They're definitely feeling the nerves in this upper bracket. Once they're down into the lower bracket, maybe facing another team that's had a difficult time in the upper bracket, maybe they're feeling a bit more comfortable. Maybe with some more prep as well for the next match, they could make something happen. Snipes.
Yeah, it is unfortunate to see Sorrow go out in such a fashion, but I mean, they played well. A lot of the games were very close. It comes down to just a few stages in some of those matches, like we saw in that Billy or I think it was the demo set. It was a few stages difference. Um, so unfortunately, we are going to be saying goodbye to Sorrow today and heading into the lower bracket. But congratulations on Invictus for that 3-0 victory. And we have a lot of more exciting matches. The next one being Elysium versus Desperate. Elysium, another one of those teams, being that bigger name. They have so much experience in the comp scene. It is going to be an absolute blast to watch them play.
Yeah, it was definitely a treat to see Invictus here with their first performance on the AHL 2025 bracket. Really putting in a dominant performance and making it look almost effortless. So great performance there from Hillbilly, Demo, Lich, just crazy performance all around from Invictus.